Thank you all for being here. Access to a free and open internet is a 21st century right. Net neutrality forms the foundation of both our democracy and our economy. Yet the internet, this diverse and dynamic platform, is under attack. Last month, the Federal Communications Commission turned a deaf ear to millions of Americans standing up for a free and open internet and instead gutted net neutrality. That's why we plan to fight these actions in the halls of Congress and in the courtroom. I am proud to stand with my colleagues and announce that 40 senators, including myself, have signed on as co-sponsors to my Congressional Review Act, or CRA, resolution that will undo the FCC's recent actions and restore the 2015 Open Internet Order. According to the CRA rules, we can force a vote on the Senate floor with just 30 senators signing a discharge petition, so there will be a vote on the floor of the United States Senate on net neutrality, on restoring the net neutrality rules. Congress has the power, through the Congressional Review Act, to overturn the FCC's actions. That's what we must now focus on here in Congress. We will spend the coming months building our grassroots support for the CRA. Our list of co-sponsors is increasing. Momentum is building. Millennials are energized. They know the loss of net neutrality means the loss of control over the internet, which is oxygen to them. We cannot let that happen. There will be a political price to pay for those who are on the wrong side of history. That's why it's so important that we have such a great leader of the Democratic Party in the United States Senate who believes in and is fighting for a free and open internet. We now have 40 co-sponsors. I give you the great leader of the Democratic Party in the Senate, Chuck Schumer.
Thank you, Eddie. And I want to thank all of my colleagues here. This is an issue that has broad and deep support in our caucus, and I want to thank Ed Markey for pulling this together, and so many others who worked hard on this, our ranking member Bill Nelson, Brian Schatz, who's pushed so hard on this issue, Ron Wyden, one of our experts on technology, Dick Blumenthal, who's worked very hard on this issue, and Amy Klobuchar, who is the natural in politics, who understands how important this issue is. Now, I'm going to keep my remarks brief because I know we have a lot of speakers. On issue after issue, President Trump and his administration have been derelict in helping average families. They always seem to side with special interests against average folks. If there were ever a clear example of how this administration picks corporations over people, CEOs over citizens, multinational companies over small businesses, consumers, and startup companies, you have to look no further than the elimination of net neutrality. The Republican Party and the Trump administration are on the wrong side of the issues, and the millennials in this country know it. They're mobilizing. Every one of us has gotten thousands and thousands of social media messages, whether through Facebook or email or Twitter, defending net neutrality. It's an issue that galvanizes people, particularly younger people who grew up with the internet, as opposed to some of the older people who didn't grow up with the internet. I'm looking at myself here, being, I think, well, close to the oldest person here.
Time's up.
What? I hope he meant that just literally for this morning. The Republican Party, the #1 issue that opposed Trump in the Virginia and New Jersey elections, and the largest age cohort of millennials. Millennials played a huge role in sending Doug Jones to the Senate in Alabama. So make no mistake about it. Net neutrality will be a major issue in the 2018 campaigns, And we are going to let everybody know where we stand and they stand. Eliminating neutrality in a fair and open internet undermines entrepreneurialism, crowds out the creativity that has been the engine of extraordinary innovation and the engine of economic growth. Millennials were born into a world with the free and open internet. It's as integral to their daily lives as a morning cup of coffee. So when the administration rips it from their hands and hands it over to the big ISPs on a silver platter, millennials will know that Republicans were responsible, and you can bet Democrats are going to make sure of that. Put simply, we're going to be fighting to save the free and open internet, while Republicans are fighting to hand it over to corporations. So today's announcement that we have at least 30 co-sponsors, did you say? 40. Co-sponsors. And I was going to make another joke, but I figured I'd better not. That we have at least 40 co-sponsors of Senator Markey's CRA disapproval resolution is just the first step. I want to assure the public, as Minority Leader, I will exercise my right and my power to force a vote on this resolution in the Senate. Every colleague in the Senate should know there will be a vote. We will know on which side do you stand. First, we try to undo the administration's horrible decision. And with a roll call vote, Republicans will have a chance to right the administration's wrong, and Americans can see for themselves who really has their back in this Congress. Eddie Markey.
Thank you. Senator Ron Wyden.
Thank you, Senator Markey, and congratulations to Senator Markey and this wonderful coalition, because they are showing once again that political change in America is not top-down. It doesn't start in Washington, D.C. and trickle down. It is bottoms up. And the extraordinary grassroots juggernaut that Senator Markey has built for this legislation is a perfect example of citizens' power. I'm going to be very brief. I want to set a land speed record for shortness here, and simply say that this resolution is what is going to restore real net neutrality. And by that, I mean what Americans think of as an open and free internet and actual net neutrality. It means after you pay your internet access fee, you get to go where you want, when you want, and how you want. With the Markey resolution, that's what you get. Without the Markey legislation, where you're going, resolution, where you're going is Mr. Pai's vision, which is really based on something close to an information aristocracy. His view is if you have the paid prioritization and all the goodies and the technology treasure trove for people at the top, it's all going to come out fine. We don't share that view. We think the essence of a free and open internet is the Markey resolution, which treats everybody the same. It's the essence of a treat all comers alike kind of approach. Last point deals with what I think Mr. Pai is talking about, which is he's always talking about a voluntary approach or a soft touch or the like. Let me tell you something. What the Markey resolution says is you're going to have net neutrality because it's going to have teeth. Mr. Pai's vision of the soft touch or a voluntary approach to net neutrality is about as likely as my getting 10-year-old William Peter Wyden, my son, to voluntarily agree to limit the number of his desserts. It just isn't going to happen. So if you want real net neutrality, you have to be for the Markey resolution. And thank you, colleagues, for letting me barge in and do this.
Ranking Member Bill Nelson, Commerce Committee.
What G. Pai did was too cute by half. He did an all-out assault on consumers. He could not contain himself, and he went completely to the extreme. This will reverse that. And what we are doing with this is reversing what the FCC's anti-consumer net neutrality decision was. I look forward to participating in this step and then participating in what is to come.
Brian Schatz, Hawaii, Ranking Member, Telecommunications Subcommittee.
Every member of Congress is going to say they support an open internet, but now it's time to put up or shut up. This is the time that we have to fix the FCC's mistake and restore net neutrality. Now, there are lots of real problems in society and even on the internet, whether it's bots or whatever. But of all the things to try to intervene on, Republicans picked the foundational premise of the internet itself. They picked net neutrality, and in doing so, they changed the very nature of the internet, and they are going to regret it on policy, and they are going to regret it on politics. Republicans have woken up a sleeping giant, and I have to say, I've never seen an issue that fires up teenagers and college kids like this since the Iraq War. This is being underestimated on the Hill. This is all over, not just the social media that we in politics use, Facebook and Twitter, but also Instagram and whatever else there may be. I think last time I said Vine, and my staffer had to tell me Vine was gone. But this is what's happening on the internet. People are talking about what happened to net neutrality. And this is an opportunity for us to correct the mistake that was made last fall. People are mobilizing across the country to save the free and open internet, and we have an opportunity to do just that. Members of Congress, members of the United States Senate have heard from the lobbyists and the corporations, and now they need to hear from the people. Dick Blumenthal.
Thank you. I want to thank Ed Markey for his tireless work on this issue for many, many years. He's been a champion of freedom of communication and consumer interests, and both of those values are at stake here. Now, we're spending a lot of time talking here. The reaction of most of our children is a great big duh. What is there to argue about when it comes to freedom of access? Why should we even be here? The reason is, quite simply, that the FCC has proven itself a puppet of the special interest. There is nothing more anti-democratic and un-American than strangling freedom of communication. That's what the FCC has done. Not only has the FCC awoken a slumbering giant, but it has also triggered a legal fight. Right after this final rule is filed, within the next few weeks, there will be a court case. I will be joining as an amicus. I suspect most of my colleagues will as well, because the FCC is fundamentally violating the law. It is showing its contempt for the rule of law. And that also is fundamentally undemocratic and un-American. And I might just say in conclusion, the FCC, under its prior leadership, very carefully, meticulously, methodically wrote a rule based on fact. It is fact-based. It's based on a record. This FCC has simply overridden it, roughshod, without any fact-finding. Now, I know that sounds technical. The reaction here may be a great big duh, but it matters in the courts, and this new action is doomed to fail in the Congress or in the courts. And I am now pleased to introduce our great colleague, Amy Klobuchar.
Thank you very much, Senator Blumenthal. Thank you, Senator Markey, and all of the leaders up here for taking this issue on. Just 2 points. One, to follow up what Brian said, and that is that my daughter just graduated from college, and this is the one issue that she has kept hitting home to me. She sent me the John Oliver show and called and texted me every day for a week to make sure I'd watched it. And that is because these kids have grown up with the internet as our way of communicating. This is no longer 20 years ago where you check to see if an address on the internet or one article. This is how they communicate, and they get it, and they don't want to have a fast lane for those that can pay and a slow lane for everyone else. The second issue is this, and that is businesses, small businesses I'm talking about, not big businesses. For small businesses, they have 2 problems right now. If they're in rural America, like a lot of mine are, they have problems with slow internet to begin with. I visited a chain jewelry store this year, or last year, that makes little chains that you then sell to hobby stores. And this woman started out with just her and her husband in a kitchen and now has 24 employees. For starters, she started on the internet and is now selling all over the country. She can't even have her sales force located in Ada, Minnesota. She sends them over to Fargo because she can get faster internet. Okay, fine. But then if you add that expense to another one, which is that for small businesses, they're not going to be able to compete if they are put in a second-class citizenry, which is what I'm afraid that this order is going to do. And my last point I'd make is it's working. Why mess with it? And that's exactly what they've done here. And I think it's a special interest issue. I think it's part of this whole suppression of speech, whether it is the assault on the First Amendment, whether it is the assault on voting rights. This is a way of limiting people from communicating with each other, and we have to change it. So I want to thank Senator Markey and my colleagues for their leadership. And with that, to introduce another great member of the Commerce Committee, Senator Tammy Duckworth.
You know, this decision by the FCC is so incredibly short-sighted, but it's also very un-American. I want to touch on what my colleague Senator Klobuchar talked about, what this would do to small businesses and entrepreneurs. They will not be able to compete because they will be crushed by the large corporations. They will not be given the same access that they normally would enjoy in order to access the marketplace. I have parts of Illinois right now where there is no broadband, where kids can't do their homework, where the large internet providers won't come in and provide affordable internet access, so much so that my municipalities are forming their own cooperatives to install their own broadband. And just by doing so and providing some sort of competition, they've now brought down the price of some of this. What this does is take away competition, take away free access to the marketplace, makes it so that our nation's teachers and students will not get the access to online education and resources that they need. And simply put, it is unfair, it is un-American, and it overwhelmingly benefits wealthy large corporations at the expense of small businesses, of all of those folks who are on the ground every single day trying to be the engine of our economy. In Illinois, small and medium businesses are 95% of my employers. They will be hurt by this rule. Thank you.
Senator Maria Cantwell, great leader from Washington State.
Thank you. And it's so great to be here with my colleagues from the Commerce Committee. I thank Chairman Nelson. I certainly thank Senator Markey for his leadership here. We're here today to speak about how important the internet economy is to our future economic job growth and job creation. Clearly, over the last several years, the biggest job growths that we've seen in America have come from internet businesses. Why now would someone want to slow that down by giving monopolistic powers to someone who can throttle or slow down the internet? The concerns that we have now are about the applications and business models that will be threatened by this. In my state, it could be as simple as, yes, I want to go to Starbucks and get my pre-ordered coffee without having it slowed down, to as complex as healthcare providers who are doing rural healthcare and want to know that someone delivering to the emergency room also will have their files there from their physician. Or something as important to making sure that our nation battles the threat of cybersecurity by making sure that you don't have, again, interrupted service or slowed down service when your business is under attack. We are seeing an attack on that internet economy by this FCC rule. What we want to do now is to say to our Republican colleagues, where do you stand? With big corporations who are trying to slow down that innovation or job creation, or on the side of consumers and businesses and the innovators of our future? This rule was here for a reason. It was to protect a level playing field and to make sure that no one artificially created opportunity and access by controlling the internet. If we go back to the very beginning, we have done a good job, challenging, but yes, a good job at continuing to have this very, very important aspect of our economy grow. Let's now not put a chokehold on it by allowing big corporations to artificially charge more for consumers. Thank you.
There is a grassroots tsunami building across the country on this issue. To represent that powerful force, we have Craig Aaron from Free Press. Please, Craig.
Thank you, Senator. I'm Craig Aaron from Free Press and the Free Press Action Fund. I've been coming up here to Capitol Hill to talk about net neutrality for a decade, and today was the first day I realized I needed a talk to the children of lawmakers strategy, which seems to be very powerful. I've been traveling across the country talking to people about why they care so much about net neutrality, and they all basically agree that we need a free and open internet, and they all agree that we can't trust the cable companies. For all these years, we know net neutrality is important. We know we're talking about our fundamental rights to connect, to communicate, to organize, to innovate, and net neutrality has always been popular. People filed more public comments on net neutrality at the FCC than on any other issue ever. Net neutrality has also always been bipartisan. Whether you're looking at the Black Twitter or whether you're looking at the Breitbart comment thread, you will find net neutrality supporters everywhere. In fact, 4 out of 5 Americans support net neutrality, more than that, and apparently the 5th couldn't answer the phone because they were stuck on hold with the cable guy. While net neutrality has always been important, popular, and bipartisan, we can thank Donald Trump's FCC chair, Ajit Pai, for truly making net neutrality a kitchen table issue. They tried to sneak through these rule changes over Thanksgiving, but instead they made it a trending topic on Twitter. They put it on the front page of Reddit, and thousands and thousands, millions of calls in total have gone to Capitol Hill, and many offices are reporting 4,000, 5,000, 6,000 calls in support of net neutrality and 0 in support of Ajit Pai. People have been showing up at their congressional offices, they've been showing up in the streets, they've been showing up outside of Verizon stores. If I'm being honest, with our partners at Battle for the Net, Free Press, Demand Progress, and Fight for the Future, we hoped we would do 15 protests on December 7th. More than 700 protests organized by volunteers happened in all 50 states. And everywhere we went around and we asked people, you know, have you done this before? Have you been out to a protest? And hands went up where people were saying it was their first protest. You know, have you ever come out here to stand on a cold corner with a sign before? And they said, no, this is my first time, and place after place after place. But when we asked them if they would come again, they all said, yes, yes, hell yes. We will be out here again until net neutrality is protected. Ajit Pai has awakened the public, and they're not tired. They are energized. They fought very hard for these rules in 2015, and they're very upset that they're being taken away. So they're not going to fall. They're paying attention. They're paying attention to the now 40 senators who have already signed on to support this crucial legislation. They're not going to be fooled by fake compromises. They know that the only legislative solution they want now is the complete repeal of these dangerous new rules, and for this Congress to throw out what the FCC chair did. They're not going to forget who stood with them in this fight, and the internet will not forget either. Thank you.
Thank you, Craig. And finally, we're going to hear from Sarah Morris, who is here representing the Open Technology Institute. Welcome, Sarah.
Thank you, Senator. And I want to start by extending my gratitude to all of the senators that we've seen here today. You've all been long-standing champions of an open internet, and particularly you, Senator Markey, and we appreciate all of the work that you've done to get this CRA moving and to get now 40 co-sponsors alongside of you. So I thank you all for your leadership, for your service to the American people, and for your commitment to net neutrality. I want to close here today by talking a bit about momentum and where we go next, and to express why I'm optimistic. So the Open Technology Institute has also been a longstanding champion of net neutrality, and we've been committing to achieving and preserving the 2015 rules. And we've watched the role that momentum can play along the way. We often faced skepticism. I remember in 2014 coming out of the court case and restarting a proceeding that eventually led to the 2015 rules. People told us, oh, companies don't care. We got 150 companies, mostly small startups and medium-sized companies, to immediately commit to strong net neutrality rules. The number of companies now supporting net neutrality is in the thousands. And we were also told the people don't care. No one knows what net neutrality is. This is just not an issue that resonates. And as Craig Aaron so eloquently explained, this is now a household name, a fundamental part of the activism and engagement that people are doing in politics throughout the country. We have seen this become both a late-night comedy show topic and now quite fundamentally a household name. We've faced skepticism about whether or not getting Title II was achievable or getting the strong rules that we eventually saw. And lo and behold, on February of 2015, that FCC voted in the strongest rules, net neutrality rules in history, grounded in strong legal authority. And that authority was upheld resoundingly in the DC Circuit. So OTI has continued to fight. We've watched the role that momentum can play, and we're excited to continue that fight here now that we have this terrible repeal to contend with. We support Senator Markey and all of his colleagues in the CRA and their efforts to repeal the repeal. We'll continue to help states fill in the gaps that this FCC has left behind. And we are proud and eager to join our colleagues at Free Press and other organizations in the fight to preserve net neutrality in courts. And with that, I will close.
Beautiful. Thank you, sir. So you can see we have an incredible coalition, and it's just going to grow and grow until that day when we have the vote on the Senate floor to restore net neutrality. Questions from anyone? The whole process does not begin until the Federal Register has published these new regulations. We do not control that. That is within the control of Ajit Pai. So nothing begins until that decision is made by Ajit Pai. And then after that, the process unfolds, but the 30 co-signatories, we now have 40, triggers a privilege motion on the Senate floor for the vote. It is something that is clearly not going to happen until the clock begins to run after the published regulations, but we should expect to see it by late spring or into the summer, but definitely it is something on the calendar for one of the big moments of the year in the Senate. Question? Yes, ma'am. Yeah, please, Bill. Yes.
There is a time for that. Now, this is the time for this. And it's going to give senators an opportunity to vote very clearly Are they with Ajit Pai or are they with consumers?
Yes, yes, sir. Well, Congress is a stimulus response institution, and there's nothing more stimulating than 20 or 30 million Americans online demanding that there be a vote and that there be a restoration of net neutrality rules. So I can't predict the future, but I do know it's going to be pretty clear which side, not only the policy, but the politics of this issue are going to be by late spring. And I have some real hope that we'll be able to get those final 2 votes in order to overturn. Yes, sir. And again, I think Bill Nelson just said it. It's a time for a CRA. That's what that's our schedule right now. And that is going to be consuming us for the time being because we have a very good chance, in our opinion, of actually restoring the net neutrality rules.
Our Republican colleagues need to take a side. You know, it's pretty clear. They have a choice. They can be with consumers or they can be with the special interests. There's no more clear and stark choice during this session on consumer issues.
Yes, sir. I don't know exactly what the organizational effort is in the House at this point. I know that there will be an effort that will take place over there. They need 218 over there to sign on, but I think there's real momentum here. We're going to be very close over here to a majority. I think they're going to wind up being very close to a majority in the House as well. And this issue, as Craig and Sarah just said, is going to have an incredible potency across this country. Thank you all so much for coming.